let's look at the Epicureans. I mentioned that some of these have schools, like actual edifices that go up. Like Plato had the Academy, right? So let's keep that. Let's keep them here. They're part of this Greek universe that we already talked about. The Plato and the Platonists, the followers of Plato, what do they have? They have a school called the Academy. The Academy. The Aristotelians, the Lyceum. The Cynics, do you think they have a school? Nope. You want to stick us in buildings? I don't think so. We don't do that. That's part of the problem. So we're not going to have a school. We're not going to make you pay tuition. That's not going to be a thing. So they don't have one. The Epicureans do. Their school is called the Garden. What's the Garden? And who are the Epicureans? What do they teach? Well, their founder is Epicurus. That one's pretty easy to remember. Epicurus. In the Garden, what do they teach? Pleasure is the highest good. Remember, that's one of those things that Plato was like, no. Pleasure's not the highest good. Settle down, Plato. Pleasure is the highest good. And Epicurus says, you know this from just recognizing your own body. When you experience pain, what does your body do?
It stops whatever is causing it or
Right,
gets
yeah.
delayed.
Yeah, whether it be reflexively or consciously, right? Like, have you ever touched something that was too hot you didn't know it was hot? Like a stovetop or something? Right? You ever burn your thumb? Oh! And you automatically, your hand goes away. Yeah, so you know pain is bad. But what do we like? Pleasure. Pleasure's good. And this is what we do as humans. As much as Plato could say, like, no, you should avoid pleasure. Pleasure is just, pleasure's not the highest good. But it is, though, says Epicurus. Because what do? We go after pleasure. Now, however, he at least agrees with Plato in this much. It doesn't need to be sensuous pleasure. Like, there are pleasures that human beings can have that other feeling beings cannot. Like, obviously, a dog can enjoy the pleasures of food. They have a sense of being refreshed, pleasure of drink, taste, they've got it. Obviously, they experience some sort of sexual pleasure. But yeah, we've got that too. Because we're animals as well. But there are other pleasures that we have that other animals don't have. Now, sometimes they can be analogous. Like, I've seen animals that you can tell really are affectionate towards each other. But there are a few things deeper, says Epicurus, than the bond of friendship between human beings, like when it's really good. And maybe animals can have companions with each other, but they're not talking to each other about their troubles. So Epicurus says friendship is a deep human pleasure. That's good. You should have friends. Because it's good for you. That's pleasure, and that's a pleasure that's different. Also, increasing in wisdom. Learning stuff is a pleasure that other animals can't do. Yeah, maybe an animal can learn some tricks. Learning, the pursuit of knowledge, going, I finally get this. Mastering something. And it doesn't need to be something necessarily academic. It could be learning how to do something. Maybe you learn how to play an instrument. I finally nailed that piece. Okay, finally got those 30-second notes just right. Maybe it was something athletic. I finally pulled that off. Okay, I stuck the landing. Okay, finally I did it. Maybe you finally beat that boss in that video game. Whatever it is, there's this feeling of pleasure from learning how to do something. And Epicurus says that is distinctively human. And those other pleasures are good too, like food, drink, sex, all those things are good too. They are. Not to Plato, but for Epicurus, they are good. But these other kinds of distinctively human goods are even better. And that's what life should be about. And that's what we should go after. So let's do that. And also, we need to do that because, from Epicurus' perspective, this life that we have right here, there's no world of forms. This is it. What life is for Epicurus is this sensuous being. That is what we feel here and now. Does a dead body feel pain? Neither does it feel pleasure. So if all we've got is the time in this body, right now, make the best of it. And again, within reason here, that doesn't mean, I'm going to do the most pleasurable things right now. You might do pleasurable things right now that cost you later. In which case, that would be ultimately painful. So don't be an idiot. And you can use your reason to figure that out. Again, the emphasis on reason. But as a result, the Epicureans end up being very hostile to notions of the soul's immortality. There's no soul. There's you here now. This is it. Live your best life now. No, I'll put it, no, this is all you've got. Don't live a dolorous life. That would be a life filled with pain. That's literally what that means. Be a hedonist. And so the Epicureans are hedonists. We talked about that word before. So it is people that believe pleasure is good. So as a result, let me actually look at some of the things that he says, some of his conclusions. This is in the Principal Doctrines. If you have the book, it's on page 335. What is blessed and indestructible has no troubles itself, nor does it give trouble to anyone else, so that it is not affected by feelings of anger or gratitude, for all such things are signs of weakness. So what's best? Not to have trouble. What he said there is, avoid pain. That's the best life you can have. That's a blessed life. Avoiding pain. And that's something we can use with our reason. We can consciously avoid pain in our lives. Even, especially future pain. That's something other animals can't do. A mouse might know, I don't want to step in that trap. But we can go, we can plan. I'm not going to do that thing because I know it will cause this eventually. We can do that now and make those kinds of preparations. He says this, this is the 8th doctrine. No pleasure is a bad thing in itself. Sorry, Plato again. No pleasure is bad. But the things which produce certain pleasures bring troubles many times greater than the pleasures. So watch out. Again, hedonism, or the belief that pleasure is the highest good, doesn't mean you just naively pursue any pleasure. Oh, I think that's going to feel good. I'm going to do that right now. You don't need to eat another pizza. It might feel good now. It's not going to feel good later. You can use your reason to determine that. Okay, so that's the theme here. Pursue pleasure, and pursue especially the highest pleasures. And that's what they teach at the garden. But also there's a disavowal of things like immortality. Anything that the body is all that we've got, so let's make the best of it. That's part of the reason why, especially the Epicureans and Stoics, I think I've mentioned this before, show up actually in the New Testament in Acts chapter 17. With Paul's in Athens, where he's in the spot, the Areopagus, where Plato and Aristotle taught. And he starts saying things, and like, well, this is interesting, and as soon as he brings up the resurrection of the dead, they're like, nope. There's only bodies. Also, God doesn't do that. The perfect being doesn't incarnate. So no thanks, go on. That's part of the reason that particular group objects to that. Skepticism. Let's do that one. Skepticism. Now, we already talked about last time, skepticism, in a colloquial sense, means somebody that's doubtful of something. To what degree? What does it mean to be skeptical?
You don't believe like everything you hear.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's what it typically means. You don't believe everything you hear. There can be different levels of credulity, right, or believability. Like I might say something like, hey, I saw a pink car out in the parking lot today. Do you believe it?
Yeah.
I didn't. I just lied. But that sounds conceivable, right? Like we could go check. Like, okay, Nate, that sounds okay. That could be. But if I said something like, I saw, aliens land in the parking lot. Okay. What? Again, still maybe possible, but far less likely. So that doubting, that kind of thing. And so skepticism in the classical sense isn't quite that. It's not just doubting everything. There's a specific kind of doubting. Also, I'd say modern skepticism, like there's been a skepticism of the last 20 years that I would call a hostile skepticism. Okay, so I think, colloquial skepticism is like doubting, I don't know, I'm skeptical about that. I don't know. Like if I told you in the middle of July it's going to snow here. Probably not. It might. You think those Texans would have thought that it'd be the way it is right now? Probably not. We had an ice storm here, 7 years ago? About this time? Unlikely, inconceivable of an ice storm right now here. But it's at least in the realm of possibility. Unlikely, possible. In the last 20 years, there's been a hostile form of skepticism that has become a kind of argumentation. So I don't mean this kind of skepticism either, but I just want to point it out. So it started with a couple of popular atheists, like 20 years ago, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, some others, Daniel Dennett, Michael Shermer, who are like, no, that's, any sort of miraculous claim is not science, and you're stupid and an idiot for believing that kind of stuff. But it took on this antagonistic attitude, which has now morphed into really any debate of any kind. People aren't really debating each other. I'm going to make you look like an idiot because you're stupid, and that's every debate there is now. Up to the highest echelons of government. So I don't mean that kind of skepticism either, which is like, no, you're wrong, you're an idiot, and I don't have to use any kind of logic or argumentation to show that you're wrong, you're just dumb. Okay, that kind of skepticism, I'm not going to leave that. And then sort of doubting everything that anybody in authority says. Period. No. Like anti-vaxxer kind of skepticism. There's lead in vaccines. Well, yeah, but when you mix lead with other things, it's not lead anymore. That's called chemistry. Hydrogen's in water, but I don't recommend drinking liquid hydrogen. It'll kill you. Should you drink peroxide? Is it literally made out of the same atoms as water? Yep, just in a different orientation. Okay. Same stuff, but again, rearrange. Don't be ignorant of science and try to be more of a skeptic. What if the Earth's flat? Stop it. Okay, that kind of stuff. There's that kind of skepticism. This kind of skepticism, ancient skepticism, is this. It is I'll say it's the distancing from dogma. Now, what I mean by dogma there is just teaching. Okay, dogma, doctrine, doctor, all those words just mean teaching. So, like to indoctrinate. Oh, that's bad. Literally, if someone's teaching something ever, that's indoctrination. That's what the word means. Now, I think there's a special sense of trying to teach someone in such a way that they're being abused or misused, surely. But you're being indoctrinated literally right now. So the skeptics say, when it comes to doctrine and dogma, you can use those words interchangeably. They have different connotations, but they really mean the same thing. They come from the same Latin word. The skeptics go, any big package of teaching, they say, we're going to distance ourselves from coming down on it. Well, let me explain what I mean by that. Let me explain the word too, I guess. Literally, skepsis, which just means to question. That's all it means. They have these two virtues. And so I said the cynics had virtues, self-sufficiency, shamelessness. These are the skeptic virtues too. One is ataraxia, and the other is going to be epoche. Here's the deal. Well, here's what these mean. Ataraxia, here's what we should go for. Have you ever had this overwhelming feeling that, especially if you're studying for a test, there's no way I can get all this information out here into here? It's a frustrating feeling, yes? Especially when we're cramming, and I've been there. And like anything else, it takes practice. It's just practice. It's like learning a musical instrument, a sport. Ataraxia is this feeling of, and here's the virtue. It's this feeling of, you're not going to know it all. You're never going to know it all. And that's okay. Don't get, literally it means not disturbed, not perturbed. Literally, it's usually translated as mental imperturbability, which is far too many syllables. All that means is, don't let your mind get disrupted. Ataraxia, sort of be at peace with not knowing, with knowing that you're not going to know everything. It's okay. And we, human beings, aren't good at doing this. It's okay to say that you don't know. But we feel this kind of inferiority, like when we say, I didn't know that, well, you idiot. I think part of that comes from that, again, that modern, contemporary, hostile skepticism, where we're embarrassed to admit when we don't know something. Oh, I didn't know that. I wasn't taught that in school. I've never heard that before. And then you just kind of like, nah, okay. And there's a tendency also for others for us to be condescending. Oh, you didn't know that? You didn't know that? You're not going to know everything. So calm down. It's okay. Just you're not going to know everything. Like your thirst. If Aristotle said in the Metaphysics, he starts that book by saying, all human beings by nature desire to know. It's one of our innate human wants. Maybe we don't want to know everything, but we want to know something. Everybody has something that they're interested in. But that task is never going to be completed. And you might have this sense of frustration about it. I just knew a little bit more. I could finally do this thing. It's okay. Chill. You're never going to completely get there. It's a process. But there's also this notion of epoche, which literally means, let me translate these, mental imperturbability. Just because if you Google it, that's what you're going to get. Like I said, I prefer saying like not disrupted. Don't let your mind get disrupted. Epoche, literally suspension. Not suspension like the suspension on your car, and not suspension like getting in trouble in middle school, but suspension in the sense of holding something at like when something's suspended, it's kind of floating at a distance. To put something at a distance, to get away from it. Like you can be, I can see it, but I'm not going to be completely near into it. Now, what does that mean here for us? The skeptics say this. By suspension, they mean keep every belief system at a distance. What do I mean by belief systems? Well, the skeptics say that this. There are a lot of different beliefs out there. Beliefs that look, there's Platonists. There's Aristotelian. What do the Platonists say? There's the world of forms. Aristotle says there's that big theos floating out there. The Christians are around. The Christians say this: that the God that made the heavens and the earth became incarnate, walked around for a while, did some stuff, but that's the actual creator of the universe that died on the cross. At least the second person of the triune God incarnate did that. Okay. The skeptic says, learn all you can about everything. So modern skepticism often will say, no, that's stupid. You don't have to listen to fairy tales. The ancient skeptics will say, learn all you can about every belief system. Everything you encounter. Soak up all you can. Don't buy into any of them. Knowledge does not have to be subscription. And by subscription, I mean like, all right, I learned about it. I'm ready. Where do I sign up? That's not skepticism. Skepticism is where you learn as much info as you can in a disinterested way. Now, the word disinterested gets misused. It doesn't mean uninterested. It means that you don't put passion into it. Passion in the sense of, well, now that I've studied this, I have to become this. That kind of passion. So to be disinterested, it kind of means like objective. Like I want to get it as clearly as I can, but I'm not putting my foot down on it, really one way or the other. I'm not being dismissive. I'm not being supportive. Here's what they say. In fact, that's the way I try to go about my own teaching, is in this kind of skeptical manner. I'm not telling you to believe this, but here's what these people say, and I'll try and give it to you as charitably as possible. Here's what they said in their own words. You don't have to agree with it or not, unless it's in some way injurious, then I will say something. But here's what these people said. And this is exactly what some of the skeptics tell us. Now, the early skeptics, Carneades and others, I'll just say this. Where do they get this idea of skepticism from? Socrates. What did Socrates say at the court? Right here, let's tether it back to Socrates. I know one thing, and that's what? I know nothing. Now, the early skeptics are like, well, that's our motto. We don't really know anything. Neither will we purport to know something when we don't. Just like those people that he was talking about in the Apology. Later skeptics take an even more extreme position and go, there's no way Socrates could have known that. Known what? There's no way that he could have known that he knew nothing, because there's no way he could know that, because you can't know anything. Okay, so there's extreme skeptics. But skeptics aren't originally called skeptics. Originally they're called Pyrrhonists. It's called Pyrrhonism, because one of the earliest skeptic philosophers was Pyrrhus.
Should we go with the Pyrrhus?
Same name, different guy.
Oh.
My own last name is the Latin form of that. Burrus, same. So literally, I've got skepticism in my name. So just if you see the word Pyrrhonism, that refers to skepticism. Okay, in fact, there is a text in your book by Sextus Empiricus, skeptic philosopher, and he has this work in there called Outlines of Pyrrhonism. So what that is, here's the framework of skepticism, where he says, skepticism itself is not a doctrine or a dogma. Skepticism is a methodology. It's a method. It's a way of going about learning things. Whereas I would say contemporary skepticism, especially of that hostile variety, is a kind of dogma. No, you have to not believe anything, whatever stripe or species it is of it. So that's why he tells us, this is Outlines of Skepticism, or Pyrrhonism, excuse me. He says this, chapter 4, and these chapters are paragraphs. Chapter 4, which is called The Meaning of Skepticism. What is it? Skepticism is an ability to place an antithesis in any manner whatever, appearances and judgments, and thus, because of the equality of force in the objects and arguments opposed, to come first of all to a suspension of judgment, and then to mental tranquility. Both those. Both epoche and ataraxia. Just put that in one sentence. So by suspending judgment, you come to sort of a peace of mind. Now, we call an ability, not in any particular sense in the word, but simply as it denotes being able. So what he's saying here is this. What all skepticism is the ability to take different ideas, and when he says put them in antithesis, think about two different things at once. The ability to compare and contrast without buying into it. So what do I mean by that? I mean, I think of what's the difference between a circle and a square? I like circles! I was asking you to tell me the difference, not to say which one you like. Squares are stupid! I could easily imagine that. And now if that sounds childish, I could say, hey, what's the difference between, say, Islam and Christianity? Ooh. The Muslims are going to hell. That is the exact same kind of reasoning. Now that doesn't mean that circles are better or not, or has nothing to do with the notion of Christian or Islamic salvation. The point is to illustrate that what skepticism is the ability to take two ideas and say, at least here's the difference between them, and not have to sign up for one of them in order to be able to articulate those differences. I could say, well, a circle works this way, and here's the mathematical features of circle, here's how squares work, here's what Christians say, here's what Muslims say. Oh yeah, you can offer your own analysis as well. I think this is interesting, I think this needs some work, but you don't have to commit yourself to it. To be impassioned and all into it, no, I'm all in on this one. That's not skepticism. In fact, when you do that, and you end up subscribing to something, it corrupts your judgment of everything else. So, a skeptic is someone, as he says in chapter 5, that can do this ability to distance themselves from things and not commit themselves into it. If you're already committed to something, you sign up, I am a Christian, I am a Platonist, I am an Epicurean. That's all well and good. And that's fine. It's not that you can't do that. But now, that's going to warp your ability to judge other things accurately. That's fine. So they're not saying don't do that. If you want to be an Epicurean or a Christian or a Platonist or an Aristotelian, good for you. But it's going to be harder for you to skepticize, if you'll permit me that. But what we're doing is not a dogma. It's not a teaching. It's a method. And he says this in chapter 7. In answer to the question, does the skeptic dogmatize? That is, have a teaching in this way. We say that the skeptic does not dogmatize. But in saying this, we do not understand the word dogma, as some do, in the more general sense of approval of a thing. The skeptic, of course, assents to feelings which derive necessarily from sense impressions. So, being a skeptic does not mean, doesn't mean this. I woke up this morning, I got out of bed. Wait a minute. Did I really wake up this morning? How do I know? And how do I know this isn't all? That's not skepticism. That's paranoia. All right, so it's not. Of course, we don't doubt what our senses are experiencing in the moment. Okay, you might have reasons when to do that. Like if am I in a dream right now? Is this really happening? But on the whole, if I'm feeling an experience, like I see that board over there, I don't doubt that I'm seeing the board over there. I am. That doesn't mean there really is a board over there. It's not that. We don't need to even go into that. So I don't doubt what I'm experiencing right now. So not to deny that, we don't say, for example, he says, he would not, for example, when feeling warm or cold, say, I believe I'm not warm. So if you're feeling, oh, it's a little toasty in here, you're not like, oh, that must mean it's actually cold in here. No, we don't do that. But some say that dogma is assent given to one of the non-evident things which form the object of scientific research. There we go. When someone purports to affirm something that is non-evident, that is where this skepticism comes into play. When someone says, why does it rain? Well, God made it rain. Explain that to me. That's non-evident. It doesn't mean it's false, by the way. The fact that something is not immediately evident doesn't make it untrue. For example, like, what's making this go down? What pulled that down? Gravity. Show me the gravity. Are we doubting gravity now? Can you see gravity? You can see the effects of gravity, but can you see gravity yourself? You can't see the wind either. You don't go, it doesn't exist. Just because you can't see it. It's evident now. We can measure it, though. We can measure gravity, too. So we have a formula for gravity. That's like how many G's something is. How can you measure the effect of God's influence in the world? God made it rain. Maybe he did. Okay? Maybe it did. Maybe it's Aristotle's God. Well, how does that work, though? And until you can demonstrate that, but make the non-evident evident, then I'm not going to buy into that. And that's really what dogmas end up doing. They might have positions that are totally evident and defensible, but they'll get to a point where they say, here's this thing that we believe to be true, but we're not quite sure about it. Now, lest you think I'm trying to pick on religious views, there are so many things, especially in astronomical science, which are... Now, let me be careful here. The word scientific theory doesn't just mean like it's our best guess. Those are working models. But there are some things that are theoretical that have not been demonstrated, but are supposed because they make sense. Something like, here's one in modern physics. What's dark matter?
Is that a black hole?
It's not a black hole. And even then, for a while, black holes that were theoretical, they weren't observed. In a certain sense, the event horizon has never been observed. Because you can't see it because of how black holes work. There's a big black ball around it because the light's being sucked up. At least that's what we think. But dark matter is the stuff in the universe that takes up space. It's got mass. But we don't know what it is. But it makes the universe kind of add up. Have we ever observed it?
Yes, no.
Nope. But we suppose that it's there. I'm kind of skeptical of that. Well, yeah, and scientists would be too. They are. But some will say, no, it is. We know this. You'll hear scientists say this a lot. We know that this is going on. Now, there's some things we do know. Okay, because the models work and we can reproduce it. But there are some things, and let me be clear here, many things that were thought to be theoretical were then later justified. Einstein said almost a century ago, there are gravity waves. Recently confirmed. 100 years later. He was right. That doesn't mean, oh, it hasn't been confirmed yet. That means it's false. No. It doesn't. It just means it hasn't been demonstrated. But until it's demonstrated, you can at least healthily go, I'm not sure about that. I don't have to commit myself to that. And sometimes things end up being wrong, too. We thought this was going on, it turns out we were mistaken.
I guess it really means being dispassionate, not that you're not believing it, you're not believing it, you're also not believing it.
Right, yeah, that's exactly, dispassionate.
From a science standpoint, that's what you want to be, is dispassionate. It may be true, may not be true.
Right.
Get some evidence, withholding judgment, but I'm not saying it's wrong or right.
Precisely, and that's what I mean by that distance. All right, so when we're distancing, like I said earlier, when we're distancing ourselves from something, it's not that we're running away from it, but we're neither running away nor embracing it. Just like, let me be at a healthy distance here from this idea, and look at it and go, okay, here's what it says, here's what it is. I can see it from this point of view, but I don't have to embrace it, neither do I need to flee from it. I think, yeah, that's good. Okay, and that's skepticism as a methodology. Let's go into Stoicism. Okay, because I want to go into Stoicism for the sake of So my goal is to end the Greek stuff today. I hope that's possible. Oh, and by the way, the skeptics, they end up getting a school of their own. What is it? Skeptoria? What is it? It's the Academy. If you're thinking, wait a minute, I thought the Academy was Team Plato. It was. Until it wasn't. What happens to the Academy is the skeptics, over time, end up taking it over. It just so happens. To the point where, by the late Roman Empire, skeptic, Pyrrhonist, and academic are used interchangeably. For example, Augustine writes a book called Contra Academicos, which means against the academics, which is a book against skepticism. And the skeptics start getting more extreme. So there's what I just talked about, that's sort of Sextus Empiricus, old school skepticism. They start getting more extreme, like we're doubting that we're doubting right now. I can't even doubt that. I don't know. And it gets more and more extreme. That's really what Augustine's objecting to. Also, Augustine, who we'll talk about when we get to Christian philosophy, you can't really be a skeptic if you're going to be a Christian. There's some things that we believe through faith that we have to know. Al-Ghazali in the Islamic tradition is going to say something similar. So Stoicism. They have a school, the Stoa. So what are the features of Stoicism?
Are you talking about Stoicism in like the Greek sense?
Yeah.
Not the Roman.
Well, the thing is, there's different Stoicisms. So there is both a Greek and Roman Stoicism. I think there's enough of a homogeneity there that I can say they're close enough that I can talk about them monolithically. There are definitely some distinctions and differences. For example, I'm going to talk about a Greek Stoic, but there's Roman Stoicism too. Like, say, Cicero or Cicero would be a Roman Stoic. And this is probably the one that's the most popular in Rome of all these views. The Romans really like Stoicism, to the point that, as I mentioned before, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers is an emperor.
Marcus?
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius, 2nd century Roman emperor. He moonlights as a Stoic philosopher, wrote Meditations. What are the Stoics about? Well, again, like all these schools, going back to Socrates saying, no, we're the real successors to Socrates. What do the Stoics say? Wow, look at when Socrates was faced with death. How did he act? How did he behave? Was he consumed with terror and passion? Don't kill me, please don't kill me. No. He was resolved. You're going to kill me? Fine. So be it. Mastery over his emotions. So that's sort of one of the foundational principles of Stoicism, at least in ethics. Again, they have a robust metaphysics as well. Like, here's what their reality looks like. But I'm going to focus on the ethical aspect here. So, what the Stoics are really about are this. You know what distorts you more than anything else? Remember Parmenides was going on. It's physical reality. None of this is real. Everything lies to you. The Stoics say, you know what really lies to you? Emotions. Feelings. Nothing lies to you more than that. Now think about this. Now, Plato was getting at this a little bit, but for him it was really various impressions of things. For the Stoics, it's feelings and emotions, which for our purposes here I'm not going to distinguish. Has anyone ever been in here? I like this example. Has anyone ever been through a really bad breakup? I saw a couple of nods. I love you so much. Were you ugly crying? Where you look in the mirror to see what you look like when you're crying? You know what I'm talking about. I can't. But then, as time goes by, you might find yourself in a position where you go, how was I ever with this person? Because there's that moment, where the heartbreak is, where those emotions completely distort your perceptions. You think it's this way, but you're not looking objectively because your emotions literally distort the image of reality. But it's not just there. So there's that kind of, even good emotions. You really like something, you start to pursue that thing because your emotions distort your judgment. Emotions mess you up. For good and for bad. kind of at odds with the Epicureans here, who would say, like, no, like, what feels good, do it. No. If you want to go on that feel-good path, that will completely distort what things are. So be like Socrates. He wasn't distorted by emotions. He was resolved to do the right thing. Imagine what would have happened if they said, all right, Socrates, if you just shut up, we'll let you live. Really? Okay. Things wouldn't have turned out quite the same way. We certainly wouldn't be studying Plato's Apology, because it probably wouldn't have been written. But the Stoics will tell us then, all right, so how do you deal with emotions then? Suppress them. It's not don't have them. Put them away. Not repress them. I don't have emotions, what are you talking about? Suppress them. Keep them beneath the surface. So don't be overly emotive. Also, that gives you away. And then also, it just ends up being unbecoming. There's a sense of which, what it means, now colloquially what it means to be stoical is that you're unaffected by something, or that, and affection with an A is an old school word of saying emotional, by the way. If something's affectionate, it just means emotional. Traditionally, we mean something different by today. But, the Stoic will say, it ends up being unbecoming. What you want to do is keep these things in check. Don't be affectionate. Don't overly react to something, because it's dignified, just like Socrates was. So what do we do then? Well, how do I just turn my emotions off? I don't know about you. When I feel, sometimes I feel pretty intensely. Well, how do you get that in check then? And the Stoics will tell you, here's how you get your emotions in check. Because you can't just turn them off. It doesn't work that way. You need to get your, if you will, your mentality right first. And so there's some truths that you need to realize first before you can proceed on to getting those emotions suppressed. And this comes to us via Epictetus, who's a Greek Stoic. Also a slave. So this is another interesting thing about Stoicism. Its adherents are quite democratic. I already mentioned Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor. So you could have a Roman emperor, Stoic philosopher, you could have a slave as a Stoic philosopher. And they're okay with that. Okay in the sense of, it doesn't matter where you come from. What everybody has to contribute is valuable in Stoicism. Well, what do the Stoics say? This opening, this is the Encouridion, which means the handbook. The opening here, I think, is really the most important. Epictetus says this: some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. Stop there for just a second. Like, really focus on, some things are up to you and are in your control, and some things are not. You have to get through that through your head first before you do anything else. You got to get that down. Some things matter to you, other things do not. There's some things you control, some things you do not. Our opinions are up to us. And our impulses, desires, aversions, in short, whatever is our own doing. Our bodies are not up to us. Now, surely the maintenance of your body is. But the flesh you were born into, did you pick that out? Well, you know what, I think I'm going to wear this for the rest of my life. Like a cartoon version of Plato's World of Forms. Like, here I am, a spirit up there. Like, I want that body, I want to live in this time period. I want, no, not those parents, swipe. No, they're there. Now I'm here. We didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for this body, yet here we are. It's not up to you. So if now again, the maintenance of it is up to you, insofar as you can. But there's elements about it that are not up to you. So therefore, those things are out of your control. First of all, don't fret about it for you. That's out of your control. And also, don't give other people a hard time for that stuff either. That wasn't up to them. They didn't choose that body. Whether we're talking about just its shape, skin color, sex, gender, none of those things were chosen beforehand. Just sort of arrived in this way. Recognize that the stuff that you're born into. This is part of the reason why it's kind of dumb, where you could have a slave be a Stoic, and the emperor, Marcus Aurelius, I was born into this. It's like, I was born into this. I didn't ask for it to be emperor. I didn't ask to be a slave, but here I am. Well, you deal with the hand that you're dealt. These things that are up to us are by nature free, unhindered, and unimpeded. The things that are not up to us are weak, enslaved, hindered, not our own. So remember, if you think that things naturally enslaved are free, or that things not your own are up to you, you will be thwarted. As soon as you mix these things up, the things that are up to you and not up to you, you mix those things up, you're going to be frustrated your entire life. That's where your emotions come into play. It's when you mix these things up. Things that are not in your control. No, they really are in my control. I can change this person. Not in your control. And you're going to end up being disappointed if you keep pursuing that. If you think things that are in your control are not, or vice versa, you are going to be disappointed and your emotions are going to come into play and flare up. You want to avoid that emotional flare-up? Don't invest in this way. Get straight what's up to you and what's not. And you will never be disappointed. Section 3 of the Encouridion. In the case of, and there's little bits of advice here. In the case of everything attractive or useful or that you're fond of, remember to say just what sort of thing it is, beginning with the least little things. If you're fond of a jug, say you've got a favorite cup. Maybe you do in your house. Realize it's a cup. For then when it's broken, you will not be upset. Oh no, I can't believe this. Have you ever broken something that is replaceable, but you act like it's not? Even if it is something irreplaceable, if it's gone, it's gone. Things go. Everything will decay. Right? So just realize that. If you now, then he goes on, like, all right, so you break a cup, man, I broke a cup. This is kind of it, like the expression. There's no use crying over spilled milk. Right? Like, what's done is done. We can't go back and change it now. No, something is. But then he goes on, if you kiss your child or your wife, say that you're kissing a human being. When it dies, you will not be upset. Whoa, okay, that's different. What he's saying is this. Yeah, just like cups break, people die. And if you start thinking, no, they don't. I'm never going to die. My family's never. Yes, they are. And we're not trying to. He's not trying to upset you here. Like, everybody's going to die. You're going to. One day I'm going to be dead. One day you're going to be dead. Spoilers. Sorry. I hope it's later rather than sooner, but it's going to happen. Hopefully you die peacefully in your bed almost a century from now. Maybe they'll have technology to allow you to live longer in the future. I really hope so. You'll probably be benefactors of it. I won't. I'll be gone. But it's going to happen. And so just be prepared for that. It could happen. But if you think to yourself, no, that's never going to happen. How could this happen? Well, of course it could happen. Because that's what people do. They die. Just be ready for that. If you think, no, I can get them to live. No, you can't. Listen to this, section 5. What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about the things. For example, death is nothing dreadful, or else it would have appeared dreadful to Socrates. There he is. But instead, the judgment about death is what's dreadful. That's what's dreadful. So it's not that we're not really scared of death. Death is nothing. It's just life stops. It's that what we're scared of is our ideas about death, not death itself. Continuing this theme, he'll say elsewhere in here, that's why really you think you don't like somebody else? They make you angry, they upset you? They are not doing anything. You are the one coming up with an idea of them in your head that you're angry with, vexed thereupon. No one else makes you mad. You allow your own conception of others to make you mad. That's up to you. That's not up to them. Someone's being injurious to you, cruel to you, mean to you. Maybe they are. Those things they do, not in your control. Your attitude about it, in your control. You get it together. Section 8. Do not seek to have events happen as you want them, but instead want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well. Don't seek to, like we do this thing sometimes, like, I really hope this happened, I hope this happened, oh, it didn't happen. Just let things happen as they do, and roll with the punches, if you'll permit me that colloquialism there. Roll with whatever happens. Don't say, like, I really hope it happens this way, I hope this, whatever happens, happens. But really, a Stoic expression here might be, it is what it is. That's okay. But really, it's not, and I've heard this expression before, it's not so much what happens to us, how we respond to it. We need to be in check with our whole attitude. And if you start there, then the proper emotional alignments will go into place. We won't be overly disruptive. We won't be overly passionate. Crying at inappropriate times. Remember, Socrates didn't cry when he was going to die. He told everyone else, stop crying, everybody. We're good. Alas. I think that's a good place to stop with Stoicism. I think we got the gist.